The repulsive arm of the coronavirus has tightened its grip on the country and region over the past 4 weeks. We have seen a huge surge of deaths and infections, with figures standing at 43 deaths and 2,775 positive cases as of this morning. We continue to observe the negative effects of this virus on people with pre-existing illnesses such as diabetes, hypertension, asthma, and cancer, who develop severe illness, and sadly some have passed away. May I pass our condolences to the families, relatives, and friends of all the dearly departed, and take this opportunity to assure Eswatini of government's commitment to step up our response to help save the lives of citizens. The sharp increase of positive cases is indeed concerning and has caused anxiety amongst many Eswatini. This is despite of the warning we received from the Minister of Health that we are in a flu season where viruses such as coronavirus usually thrive. It is apparent that COVID-19 is here to stay for a bit longer than initially anticipated, and we all need to stubbornly remain vigilant by strictly adhering to all health precautions that have been shared by health professionals, and make sure that our elderly and those with underlying health conditions are adequately protected. On the health response, government is continuously reviewing and renewing its health response in light of global developments and health advice in order to contain the spread of the virus and save more lives. A new set of guidelines aimed at reducing deaths due to COVID-19 are being implemented by the Minister of Health, and they include improving turnaround time for COVID-19 results through offering priority testing of those with symptoms and those already severely ill and admitted at various health facilities. Improving care of suspected cases in regional hospitals by deploying additional equipment such as ventilators and oxygen delivering apparatus. Further training of health workers in the management of non-communicable diseases such as diabetes and hypertension in COVID-19 cases. Decentralizing COVID-19 care for mild disease to other hospitals other than the ones designated for COVID-19. Targeting home care services for those with mild COVID-19 disease who are more at risk of progressing faster to severe disease and death, and promoting self-care for the asymptomatic clients. Government is continuing to avail resources for the health response, including additional ambulances, bed spaces, ventilators, and oxygen apparatus. As announced previously, a total of 5 phases were designed to help us navigate through the COVID-19 response. We are currently at the upper end of phase 3, which represents mass testing and identification of COVID-19 positive people for treatment. On schools opening, our health intervention efforts are aimed at saving lives and preparing a seamless return to our normal way of life, including paving way for the education sector to resume full operation following the closure of schools in the month of March. It has been exactly 4 weeks since high schools and tertiary institutions reopened successfully for completing classes. Government continues to monitor the situation in open schools to secure the safety of both teachers and students. The Minister of Education and Training has engaged head teachers to get updates on the progress and experiences of schools under the circumstances provided by the coronavirus. It has been apparent during these consultations that teachers are committed to the cause of teaching despite working in what can be referred to as a new normal. Government has been made aware that some teachers have contracted the virus and one teacher's life has been lost. We convey our deep condolences to his family, the school and the entire teaching fraternity, and pray for the speedy recovery of the rest. Government remains committed to providing all the necessary tools to ensure a safe learning environment for all. We appeal to schools to work closely with the Minister of Health in managing the school environment when a case is suspected. Following the announcement that schools would open in a phased approach, government has commenced a process of training primary schools head teachers and chairpersons of school committees. In the meantime, we will monitor and observe the situation in high schools to determine when and how the next reopening phase can be implemented. We have an obligation to ensure that schools reopening is done with consistent and uncompromising adherence to the overall COVID-19 health guidelines to protect learners, teachers, and support staff. Schools cannot remain closed indefinitely, as that poses a risk to children's education, increases inequality and social cohesion, amongst others. His Majesty's government is indebted to all teachers and education stakeholders who have put the interests of their students at heart regardless of the challenges and risks they encounter each and every day. Government will continue to support schools to remain a safe environment for learning even during these trying times. On the economy and business, we also have an obligation to return our economy to the path of steady growth that had already been created pre-COVID-19. The partial lockdown, which rendered most businesses closed, has had a telling effect on our economy and tested the resilience of business, more especially our small business sector. Similar to other global economies, the domestic economy has been severely affected by the coronavirus pandemic. Recent global economic data has indicated massive contraction in global and domestic economic activity as economic disruptions are experienced world over. Trade disruptions, supply chain disruptions, and weakened demand have been experienced as countries implemented lockdowns, shutdowns, and other containment measures in a bid to mitigate the continued spread of the virus. As a result, global stock markets plummeted, global commodity prices fell, and exchange rates depreciated massively. Preliminary data shows that Eswatini's quarterly GDP recorded its second consecutive decline as economic activity decreased by 6.5% on a year-on-year comparison in the 2020 first quarter. This coincided with weakened demand in major advanced economies due to lockdowns. As a result, export industries and travel-related sectors have been hard hit by the COVID-19 effects. The manufacturing, construction and wholesale and retail, transport and leisure sectors were the major contributors to the contraction. The continued effects of COVID-19 on economic activity have already dented economic output from various angles. Data indicates a significant decline in economic activity due to supply and demand shocks caused by the crisis. Consequently, Eswatini's economic growth forecast for 2020 is expected to be 6.7% contraction. The impact on the fiscal position is severe, and as domestic revenue projections have been revised downwards due to the reduced economic activity. Declines were experienced in company tax emanating from reduced company output, drop in VAT from disposable incomes and labor disruptions affecting pay as you earn. On the other hand, there is increased pressure on expenditure resulting from the health sector as well as social protection sectors in response to the impact of the pandemic, as the most vulnerable are at increased risk of losing incomes. On a positive note, inflationary pressures remained subdued, with inflation averaging 3.9% in the second quarter of 2020. On fiscal stability, government has tackled the historical liquidity problem by pursuing 3.7 billion emalangeni support from various financial institutions. These include the IMF, Afrexim, World Bank, and African Development Bank. I am happy to report that the Afrexim Bank has approved support towards clearance of payment of arrears, and we are awaiting the first disbursement. The IMF has approved $110.4 million loan under its rapid financing instrument window. The World Bank has also extended $6 million loan under their emergency facility. We are engaged with the World Bank and the African Development Bank to fully eradicate the financing gap in our 2020-2021 budget of up to 2 billion emalangeni. The support will improve the economic outlook, though the depressed global economic performance will still weigh heavily in on overall performance. We are finalizing a post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan in collaboration with many key stakeholders, including the private sector. This is an aggressive plan that identifies the route we have to follow to achieve sustained economic growth despite the massive setbacks we have suffered in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. Micro, Small, Medium Enterprise Fund. Government, through the Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade, has set up an MSME revolving fund. The fund, which is to the value of 45 million emalangeni, is targeted at assisting small and medium businesses that have been adversely affected by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Modalities and details on the fund will be announced by the Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade in due course. As we continue with the calculated process of opening up more businesses to return our economic activity to normalcy, we will strengthen our monitoring mechanisms to ensure that the business environment is safe for both workers and clients. Over 1,300 businesses have been inspected by the Minister of Commerce with the support of regional administrators, police, and the National Disaster Management Agency for compliance to COVID-19 regulations. While a majority of businesses are complying adequately with the COVID-19 health guidelines, it is very disappointing to note that some businesses deliberately flout the rules. Inspections have revealed that some businesses, particularly in rural areas, fail to provide proper sanitation stations, do not enforce the wearing of face masks, do not have social distance markings, and sell expired goods. Other businesses are still inflating prices for commodity goods such as maize, rice, and sugar, amongst others. Government has taken the necessary steps to close businesses that have been found to be in conflict with the regulations. We wish to strongly advise against such flagrant disregard of the COVID-19 regulations, as this does not only put the lives of Eswatini at risk, but also manipulates consumers at a time when we should all be united to mitigate the effects of COVID-19. We will continue to charge and close all businesses that do not respect the health and well-being of Eswatini. On the Relief Assistance Fund, the impact of the virus on the livelihoods of the vulnerable has been severe over the past 6 months. It is for this reason that government has initiated a number of interventions to soften the blow and lessen the devastating effects of the pandemic on the livelihoods of Eswatini. Thousands of our citizens have lost jobs, leaving them with no food on the table. Government began a food distribution and cash transfer exercise in May, which has now reached more than 347,400 beneficiaries from 67,700 households. This assistance will continue for the next 2 months as resources have already been secured. We remain grateful to the Cash Foundation for the generous donation extended to Eswatini in support of this government initiative. Government has also rehabilitated an additional 26 boreholes, dug 11 new boreholes, and revamped 5 reticulated schemes to provide clean water to more than 14,000 Eswatini across the country. Our rural communities will reap the benefits of such an investment for a long time after COVID-19. On agriculture, the COVID-19 pandemic has amplified our objective of being a food secure and food sufficient nation. We owe it to ourselves to increase production levels, especially in agriculture. As the country remains on partial lockdown, the demand for food has continued to rise. Food prices are also following the same trend. Our bodies require healthy and nutritious food for nourishment and strength to fight the infections. In this regard, Eswatini are encouraged to engage in serious agricultural production activities for both commercial and subsistence purposes. This will go a long way towards ensuring food security and income generation to cater for other households' needs. We are all encouraged to have small nutrition gardens and livestock production units within our households. The rainy season is now approaching and it marks the beginning of the plowing season. It is our prayers that the country will be blessed with adequate rains to sustain our crops in the upcoming season. The Minister of Agriculture has already started preparations for the plowing season, and farmers are encouraged to prepare themselves to engage in agricultural production, particularly for food like grains and vegetables, which are an essential part of our daily diet. Experts in the various fields of agriculture are available on various communication platforms and are ready to assist farmers with services and information they may require as they engage in their production activities. Agriculture provides a great platform for self-sustenance, especially at a time when jobs themselves are constantly being threatened by this pandemic. On laid-off workers relief fund, the process of paying workers who were temporarily laid off without pay from the 25 million Emalangeni Relief Fund is proceeding successfully. Currently, compensatory relief claims have been paid to 8,238 employees who were laid off without pay. The amount paid out so far is 3,358,800 emalangeni. It is encouraging to note that with the gradual relaxation of the partial lockdown, the number of employers applying to temporarily lay off their employees is decreasing, signaling that business is slowly getting back to normal. As business gets back to normal, we advise that workers and employers remain vigilant in observing all health precautions to prevent a spread of new COVID-19 infections. Employers who have still not claimed for their laid-off workers are urged to approach the Ministry of Labour and Social Security for the necessary assistance so that every eligible employee can benefit from this fund. On large gatherings, it is without doubt that gatherings remain a magnet for the spread of the coronavirus, and the importance of adhering to all health precautions and protocols cannot be overemphasized. While government has allowed an increased number of people to attend religious gatherings, weddings, funerals, and public meetings under strict conditions, we urge Eswatini to remain on guard by strictly avoiding behavior that will leave them vulnerable to the virus. Large gatherings, night vigils, house parties, and selling of alcohol remains banned. Our security forces are working closely with emergency teams to enforce strict adherence to all established preventative measures. On the health precaution, may I encourage all Eswatini to support the health sector in reducing the spread of coronavirus in our families and communities. We all have an individual responsibility to protect ourselves and each other. Individuals can play a significant role in curbing the spread of the coronavirus, and this includes a number of things: wearing of masks, properly limiting movement, and large gatherings in communities. Hand sanitization remains fundamental in preventing the spread. Observing social distancing at all times, especially when we are using public transport. In conclusion, may I, on behalf of His Majesty's government, recognize the untiring efforts and commitment of all frontline workers. Without their courage and determination to face this enemy without retreat, we would not have reached this far with our heads still on our shoulders. The battle is not yet over, and we will continue to support them to help us overcome this menace which has derailed our growth paths. We remain encouraged by the Council and support of their Majesties throughout this implementation of the response interventions. Our resolve to overcome this virus continues to be tested, but our determination to make it through this rough terrain remains strong and uncompromising. The onus is on all of us to stay vigilant and refuse to be drawn to any behavior that will reverse the gains we have made in the middle of the COVID-19 storm. There is no doubt that in unity of purpose and with full compliance to COVID-19 health protocols, we will soon find our way out of this trying situation. Thank you. Nina bekunene lo mkhuhlane lesibhekene nawo wa COVID-19 siyawubona solo uyaqhubeka uyakhula bekunene njengoba nje sekunebantu laba 43 lese basishile emhlabeni inalaba ngo-2775 laba tholakele bana lo mkhuhlane bekunene kukhula ke kwalomkhuhlane bekunene kusho kona ukuthi kufuneka onke amaswati aqhubeke atinakelele njengoba bekusolo kufundziswa bekunene ukuthi labo labaphathekile labanetifo labahamba nato letifana nabo diabetes nalabagula ngenhlitiyo nalabagula ngetifuba bekunene ukuthi abatiqikelele kakhulu ngoba sekubonakele ukuthi lo mkhuhlane mawubathola bona wenda umonakalo kakhulu bekunene. Sithi ke sililela nabo bonke tihlobo talabo lesebahambile emhlabeni nebangani babo egameni lahulumende wembube bekunene njengoba nje sesibona ukuthi umkhuhlane uyaqhubeka uyakhula. Sithi onke amaswati akavela sukume ativikele siqhubeke sente konke lokufanele sikwende kuze ukuthi lo mkhuhlane unganzi kakhulu. Sekubonakele bekunene uma kuqwaningwa lo mkhuhlane nje soluqalile ukuthi ungathi labaningi lo mkhuhlane bawuthola emakhaya. Sekumeleke ukuthi sakhe emaswe ukuthi lemakhaya lo mkhuhlane siuvikela kanjani njengoba nje licwaningo lokuveta lokho. Kuto tempilo bekunene sithanda kubika ukuthi hulumende uyaqhubeka nekwenta tinhlelo letahlukene bekunene kuze ukuthi lesifo singasehluli. Kunetinhlelo ke letiko letempilo leselivele litethulile siveni bekunene ekuthenini basheshe batholakale laba nalomkhuhlane bese bayasitakala bekunene kuphindwe futhi kufundziswa nalabo labasebenta kuto tempilo sesiphindze sashintsha nendlela lesisebenta ngayo ukuthi kusale kuyiswa imisebenzi leminingi etindzaweni letahlukene eveni kuletifundza letine bekunene sendela ukuthi lo msebenzi ungasekhambi. Ekuvuleni kwetikolo ke bekunene sithanda kubonga kakhulu bothishela nebantwa besikolo kuti phatha kahle imibiko lesitholako ikhombisa ukuthi kuhamba kahle kakhulu etikolweni nalomkhuhlane awusiyo lobukeka uhamba kakhulu ngenxa ukuthi tikolwa setivuliwe. Kungako ke namanje losikhuluma nje uhulumende usakubuketa bekunene ukuthi lamanye emaklasi siwavula njani bekunene kuze ukuthi sitobuyisela simo etikolweni bantwana baqhubeke bafunze ngoba bantwana imfundo ilikusasa labo kumele vele babuyele esikolweni bekunene. Kuto temnotho netemabhizinisi bekunene sithanda nje kuqhubeka sixwayise ukuthi kulamabhizinisi lasavuliwe nawo avulelwa ukuthi umnotho ukhule bese uyaphefumula bekunene ukuthi akulandzele yonke lemigomo lebekiwe ukuthi kusanitizwe bantu nabangena ebhizinisini bavikeleke bangafiki bese bathola lo mkhuhlane bekunene. Sibonile ke ukuthi cishe emhlaba wonke temabhizinisi neminotho vele ilimele kakhulu nelive lakangwane nalo lilimele ngesizathu salomkhuhlane bekunene. Uma sibuka nje umnotho welive lase Eswatini ukhombisa ukuthi so uthinsekile wehle ngelinani le 6.5% bekunene uma sibuka la sikhona khona naseminyakeni lowengcile. Lokho ke bekunene kubangelwa ngiso vele sizathu sekuthi amabhizinisi bekavaliwe umnotho umile uma sisalwa nalomkhuhlane. Sikatheke ukuthi siqale sibone soqala kuthuthuka uma ngabe sekwengce wona lo mkhuhlane kodwa kwanyalo kuyabonakala ukuthi umnotho ulimele. Kwehle nemithelo leyahlukahlukene bekunene lesibonile yehla sithanda ke nekubika esiveni ukuthi uhulumende akahlali phasi sesitholile nje nemali lenganga 3.7 billion emalangeni lesithole emabhange emhlaba lehlukahlukene bekunene nalamanye lesisakhulumisana nawo ukuthi asibambise ukuthi sithole le mali kuto sita ukuthi sisekele loluhla lesilibita ngokuthi budget yalomnyaka lesikuwo bekunene siphindze sisatisa nesive ukuthi imali lenganga 2 billion emalangeni lesayibika esiveni ukuthi hulumende uyayisebenta kubhadala labo labakweletwa nguye hulumende nayo seyidudane ukuthi isaliphuma bekunene sibike ke nasesiveni ukuthi sikhwama sesivele silungisiwe sekusita labo somabhizinisi labancane bekunene ukuthi bathole ema loans ku baboleke kulesikhwama bekunene lesinganga 45 million emalangeni lesiphasi kwelitiko la commerce nine bekunene lokunye lesikwendile sichubekile nekuhlola emabhizinisi ukuthi asayilandzela yini lemigomo lebekiwe losikhuluma nje sesihlole emabhizinisi lang 1300 bekunene solo siwabuka sithi ke emabhizinisi akachubeka landzele lokho lokubekiwe uma ibhizinisi ingathola ithola ukuthi ayikulandzeli sitavele sivale siyavela khona la savaliwe emabhizinisi bekunene uhulumende ke uyachubeka nekusita labo labalahlekelwe ngumsebenzi kubathumelela imali nalabanye abanikwa kudla bekunene lo msebenzi loyo usahamba kahle kakhulu tinombolo lesitalabo letikhombisa sebanikiwe setisetulu kakhulu bekunene siphindze ke sikhutsate emaswati ukuthi kutekulima akavele asukumele etulo emaswati alime bekunene alime tingadze aphinza alime nemasimu nyalo nje sesilungisela kungena kwelihlobo sithi asivele silungiselele kona kulima lonke live la kangwane ngoba sifise ukuthi live lingesweli kudla sibe nekudla lokwanele leti ke tekulima bekunene timcoka kakhulu ngoba losikhuluma nje kudla lokuningi lokudliwa la Eswatini ngilokuqhamuka ngaphandle siphindze sihambe silanze nanemmbila silanze nemabhontshisi tindlo lengabe sidilima thine khona la khaya simaswati sithi ke bekunene sikhutsata bonke osomabhizinisi laba limako nasemakhaya silime tingadze silime siphindze futhi sifuye netilwane bekunene litiko letekulima litimisele kubambisa onke maswati ukuthi basifundzise baphindze futhi basikhombise ukuthi singafuya njani siphindze futhi silime njani sithi ke simema onke maswati avela kusukumela etulu kulima siphuma umkhankaso ukuthi silime emakhaya siphindze ke sibikane ukuthi bekunene lesikhwama lesethulo esiveni ukuthi sitawusita labo labalahlekelwe ngumsebenzi kuthi naso sihamba kahle kakhulu bekunene lesa 25 million emalangeni sesivele sicalile siyasebenta bekunene siphindze futhi sibonge nemaswati ukuthi la kuhlanganyelwa khona emasontweni emishadweni nasemingcwabeni siyabona basaqhubeka basahlonipha abalandzela leto timpawu tekuvikela ukuthi lo mkhuhlane unganzi sithi bekunene asichubeke sikulandzele lokhu sitovikeleka siphindze sivikele nalabo labathutane nathi sigcizelela bekunene ukuthi onke maswati akagqoke ema-mask ngaso sonke isikhathi ikakhulu uma uphuma ekhaya uya ngaphandle kude liswati leli kumele libonakale lihambe emgwaqweni noma ligibele ibhasi noma lihambe esitaladini lingagqoki imask ngoba kungagqoki imask bekunene kwephula umthetho sekuvele kube kushayiwe emthethweni ukuthi wonke umuntu uphoqelelekile kugqoka imask kuze ukuthi sitovikeleka sonke bese ke silandzela tonke ke leticwayiso lesolo sifundiswa tona bekunene tekugeza tandla ngaso sonke isikhathi nokuthi sihlale emakhaya uma kude isidingo sekuthi uhambe usuke ekhaya vele uhlale ekhaya ngaso sonke isikhathi bekunene sithi ke egameni lembube yemhlaba sithanda kubonga bonke ikakhulu laba labasebenta etibhedlela nasemtholampilo labasebenta nje kutotempilo laba masotsha lasembili ukuthi siyababonga kakhulu ngemsebenzi lomuhle loncomeka ukuthi abachubeke bafake amandla sisalwa nalomkhuhlane nalempi lesibhekene nayo bekunene sithi ke liswati ngalinye alititshele lona ukuthi alifuni ukuthola lomkhuhlane phinza futhi lititshele ukuthi alifuni ukuthelela lomunye umuntu uma ngabe selinawo lomkhuhlane kuze ukuthi sitophepha sonke bekunene kulomkhuhlane lesibhekene nawo siyabonga.